substation, the new substation on that.
No, that's to the north, to the west is just that.
We own that already.
So you own all, you own that whole two block.
I think there's 2 lots that we own.
Okay, so you have the corner, two lots, it's all just like that.
Yeah, so the 2 structures, yeah, the garage and the house, we're gonna demo.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, the other lots.
I've got to the west or half days, no way. And is the whole area gonna be for garage for single trucks?
Dave, how are you?
Pretty good. What's happening?
How are you doing? Nice to see you.
We'll see you pretty soon.
That's right.
Yeah, not just like, see what's going on.
Well, you have a interest in that in this neighborhood for sure. Very good. Nice to see you, David.
You're not supposed to go by that? No, we don't have to go by that, we have to go by the real time.
We go by Apple Farm. It says
Evening, everyone. I'd like you to welcome everyone to this evening's Warsaw Plan Commission meeting. Approval of the February 10 minutes.
I was here and having read them, I would recommend we approve them as submitted.
So motioned. Second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Unfinished business. Justin?
There's no unfinished business today.
Thank you, sir. Can you start with 2020-0301 North Buffalo Street petition, please?
Yes, so the preliminary plat for the Buffalo Street Townhomes subdivision Phase 1 has been submitted in a timely fashion and reviewed for its conformity to the subdivision control ordinance. Although the lots proposed for the subdivision are substantially smaller than zoning district regulations typically permit, in this case, it is necessary to achieve the goals of the city's master plan. The city hopes to spur the development of high-density residential dwelling units in this area. The final plat for each block of townhomes will be presented to the Plan Commission as they are completed to avoid the misalignment of the lot lines and structures. Access to the utilities will be maintained off of Buffalo Street. With that, I recommend that the Plan Commission grant preliminary approval for the plat for the Buffalo Street Townhome Subdivision Phase 1, as defined by the plat.
Thank you. I assume you did a mailing and public announcement of this. Was there any?
Correct. We didn't receive any comments. We had a couple people stop by the office just to ask questions, but we didn't receive any written comments.
And the questions were not objections, just simply questions.
Not necessarily, none that I could detect, but they just were curious about the project. If they did, we just encouraged them to come to the meeting regardless. So.
All right. Thank you, Justin. Before we open it up, any questions or comments? Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak on behalf of this? Yes, sir. Could you come to the podium, please? That way the meeting and everyone in the press can hear you.
Great. I stopped by to check
Sir,
out,
could you start with your name?
David Van Wormer,
Thank you, David.
property owner at 312 North Lake. We're just across the corner from the project.
Okay.
Been watching it go for as long as it's been going. It looks great so far. And looking at the preliminary plat, when I stopped by the office, I had a couple of questions on the density of the mews on the back side, because that's the opposite side where I'm at. They're single story. They have a single car garage, the mews. They're 2-story.
Probably should have him speak first, maybe.
It would,
Ask your questions and I'll
one of the comments I made when I stopped by was, I have about 50 different patients rolling through my office every single day. The rear windows of the office face the project. I get 50 questions a day on this project. I don't know anything about the project. I'm finding out a little bit at a time, hence stopping by, finding out that we had first floor, and I guess they're different now. My concern is with the density on the back with the single car garage, and I've been asking a lot of people just their question on how many people live in this building, how many cars does the average family own, how many spots are gonna be over there for their cars, simply because my business, which has been there for 20 years, has the closest parking lot to all those buildings on the back, and I have a real good idea where the second car is gonna end up at, and I just would like to bring that up So any information you give me on the project would be absolutely appreciated.
Thank you, David. Actually, we were looking for the people to speak in favor of it, but I'm not sure which way you went with that. That was the question, I guess. All right, is there anyone who'd like to speak in favor of the petition? Yes, if you're speaking in favor, sir.
I hope so. David Matthews, 215 East Colfax Avenue, South Bend, Indiana,
Okay.
developer for the project. We have townhomes on Buffalo Street. Those are 2 and 3 stories with 2-car garages, 2 parking spaces in the driveway. And then on the Mew Lane, which I think we're going to name Bison Lane, which is the alley on axis with the courthouse. The plan there is the asphalt parking or asphalt pavement will be removed and nice pavers will go in. And then the townhomes will be 2 and 3 stories, 1 to 2 bedrooms with 1.5-car garages, so 1 car in and some room for your stuff, 1 car in the driveway.
Speak up just a little if you would.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
So.
you're kind of fading from the mic when you look at him.
Oh, sorry, okay. So the alley lane south of the courthouse on Axie, I think we're gonna name it Bison Lane. And the asphalt will eventually be ripped up and pavers will go in, making it a very pedestrian-friendly walkway and drive lane. And then the townhomes, where we have 3 townhomes currently built, the Mews will be 4, so just a little bit narrower. They'll have 1.5-car garages with 1 car in the driveway, and typically 1 or 2 bedrooms.
So it's a family, single-family dwelling.
Yeah, they're all single-family dwellings.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Any questions before he leaves? I'm sorry. I think you can step away. It didn't seem like anybody is ready. Anyone else who would like to speak in favor of?
I'm Don Parker. I happen to be the neighbor. We're doing renovation of 311 North Buffalo, and they've been good neighbors. We've scratched each other's back and so forth. They're very conscientious of what they're doing. We had for 2 years wintered in Florida, which was a 2-story townhouses. What is proposed, from what I can tell, and what I've seen on the townhouses in the front, they're gonna be much better qualities than the ones I had down there. I think it's gonna be a great addition to the community. We're kinda anxious to see him get it completed. It's probably not as much as he is, but I think it's gonna be a great addition to the city and so forth. And my only concern, if I can do that at this time, is twofold. One is the speed people drive in the alley, and they've been doing that whether their townhouses were there or not. And 2, it is a one-way, but people travel both ways. And unfortunately, this is my second concern because it affects me now, is the fact of where the trash is going to be picked up and the recycle is going to be picked up. I have to take mine down the alley to get it out front, and I'm just waiting for somebody that speed they come around and go through there. I'm going to have to die for my safety sometime. And so I guess that's my main concern. But what I've seen with the proposal and talked to Dave's subcontractor, I think you're going to have something you're going to be very, very proud of.
What was your last name again?
Parker.
Mr. Parker, I just, as an aside, thank you for that wonderful job you did renovating that home. You really, it's a real beauty.
Well, thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
Yeah, much appreciated.
And if you want a tour sometime, that'd be fine. But I guess my issues are safety issues
Yeah,
on
and I'm
traffic.
not,
So-
all right, it was quite an investment, and thank you very much.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the comment.
Thank you, Mr. Parker. Most of everything we've heard so far, the Planning Commission has no control over. So we defer to other authorities on most of that, so. Thank you for your
However,
comments.
Councilman Gross and I'll take that into consideration and see what we can do about maybe getting some extra patrols in there just to check on the situation now and
Well,
in
I
the
have
future.
talked to the city planning office and so forth, and actually, it got tired because there was a stop sign on the cross street as you come in from, or cross alley when you come in from the Legion, which crosses the cross there, they took the stop sign out altogether.
Yeah,
And so there's nothing on the other side.
that's what they did for me too.
So I'm just worried about how there will be more people.
You park one car in there, nobody getting through.
Downfall is where these come out between the two sections of buildings. There's going to be a certain amount of blindness and so forth. Sooner or later, something will happen.
Do you think it's intentional or inadvertent, these people that are coming the wrong way? Do they not see the one-way sign, or do you think they just blow it off and go
Where
anyway?
they're turning, and there's no one-way sign.
Okay, so they're coming up from the Legion, turning, and then going the wrong way? Yeah, okay.
There's a lot of people that are coming from 15, cutting across to get on Lake Street and go the way they're going.
I can speak a little bit to why the stop sign was removed. We have to follow strict regulations when it comes to placing stop signs around the city, and every stop sign has to be there by ordinance. So any of these stop signs that are placed in alleyways typically aren't by ordinance, so legally they have to be removed. So the streets department will take those down as they find them. It's just opens us up to liability if we leave those in place.
Yeah, but if it's a city ordinance, can't we just look at that ordinance? Because you did the same thing to my intersection too. I got a blind intersection, kids are out there playing, but no, we can't have a stop sign because of this ordinance, which just aggravates the heck out of me.
I think it's more of a national scale thing rather than just our city ordinance. There's regulations regarding.
The sign was there for 20 years.
Yeah, well, mine was there just as long, and then Johnny Law comes in and takes it out. If you complain, it's gone, yeah. The same thing.
May I speak on that? May I speak on
Yes,
that?
go ahead.
Okay. They
Don,
take
would,
the south
Don,
line.
please speak a little loud. I can't hear a thing back
You
here.
might want to grab the mic, Don.
Actually, the stop sign was something I brought up before, and it backfired. All I wanted was the fact that they take the stop sign and move it down closer to the corner of the property line, because people are taking a pretty good shortcut when they don't go all the way through. They go one way or another, and then we're going across our property. When we bought the house and started reinventing, there was a fence there. But since we had to take it out when we did the tree removing, all of a sudden people were taking shortcuts, cutting the corner a little closer, taking care of the grass and so forth. So it was something I wanted to just move it so they wouldn't do it, and they moved it out of the way rather than just moving it where it would protect our property a little bit. So I'm the cause of it. I apologize. I wanted something better, and I ended up getting something worse, so.
No good deed goes unpunished, Don. That's
Well, I'm sorry to hear
just
that.
one of the things we live with.
But
Thank you, sir.
I know quite a few of you people, and I know you all mean well, so, thank you.
We need to put up a tank trap. Or a big boulder.
Is there any other questions or comments?
Can I grab some more?
Can you what?
Can I grab some more?
I don't know, did we answer any of your questions, Dr. Van Wormer, on the parking?
I still am a little concerned that if you have again, go out in the public and ask anybody in a 1 to 2 bedroom apartment, townhome, condo, home, how many cars does the average American own?
Well, if it's couples housing, which is logically what it's gonna be, is young couples, they're gonna have 2 cars. No
They're
question.
And they're gonna have junk, and because we get it already from some of the other residents in the area, having the closest lot, I have no problem being the parking marshal and towing people off. I don't wanna be that guy, though. I would like to think that in that same area in the back, there could be a little bit different use of that same space to provide, you can change the density, you can change the parking, you can still make a profit on it, you can still bring people downtown. If you look at the the plan you guys had on your website, and they talk about the number of structures per acre and things like that, you're way off the deep end with that. 8 to 12 buildings per acre is the listed one for high-density housing, which again, on the website says, bad idea right next to a lake. I understand the project, I love it, it's improving the neighborhood dramatically where I'm at, I've been there for 20 years. But when you're talking 25 buildings on not even a solid acre, there's a density problem there. And it's not the building, just keep learning, it's what are they gonna do with all their stuff, vehicles mainly. And like Don is saying, there's going to be some traffic issues back there, that's 42, I think, when it's completed on both sides. 42 times 2. Plus change, you're looking at roughly 100 cars in that little area. What's a challenge in downtown Warsaw is a business. Where people gonna park? Nobody goes up there to park. We're more than a block off downtown. Nobody cares about that until we show up with 100 more cars. And I'm certain that 5 years from now, there'll be some people frustrated with me because they'll use that lot because they'll think it's really not that important. It won't be a problem until the snow plow needs to come in the middle of the night and clear my lot. I've got 4 people there, and then I come in the morning and find a lot full of snow. I'm just asking you to consider it before you decide to fill every square little spot back there.
Well, on these ones that you're gonna build, you're proposing, you've got a garage and then room for a car to park outside the garage, is that correct? So if there's 2 cars, they should be able to stay in their own spot. Now, if they get company, then that's another issue.
And there's a lot of street parking on Buffalo Street.
Yeah,
And the townhomes are 2 cars in, 2 cars out. And the houses on the west side will be 2 cars in, 2 cars out.
The one thing I disagree with you is the fact that people who are buying these homes aren't gonna have trash cars.
I'm not worried about traffic. I'm just worried about on the weekend when you have 4 friends over, or I've got children that are outside of town, they come back to see me from time to time. There's more, the kid ends up in a hurry, you're bringing somebody home that didn't expect to be with you for a while. That third car's gotta go somewhere, and in the design between the two, there's not a lot of room for that to happen.
Well, let me just really, like I said, we had a townhouse on Florida for 2 years, and they were a lot like this, where they were side by side, one side, the other, and there didn't seem to be that kind of problem.
One of the questions that I had was I can't read it very well at my advanced age, but that looks like 5 feet.
Yeah.
And what goes in that 5 feet? What is that designated for? Is that the parking? That's the
No,
sidewalk?
There's no parking here.
Okay, that's just a sidewalk. That's a good sized sidewalk. I was trying to figure out, it's too small for a car and plenty of room for people. Okay.
Yeah. So the thinking is that by making,
You want the big one, David?
That's where I was going.
so the thinking is that by keeping the alley relatively tight, it will help encourage drivers to drive slower. And taking up the asphalt and putting down pavers will make more road noise if they drive fast, and also encourage them to drive slower. And then that front 5 feet is the area for the people to walk. The front doors will swing into them. There'll be, kind of your stoop area. And then, so you'll have people walking there and then walking in the lane as well.
But the anticipation is no parking on Bison Street.
No parking, no.
They're all going to park behind the buildings
Well, and then Buffalo Street.
and on Buffalo
Yeah.
Street. where
And then
we have parking.
eventually in the big parking lot with the mixed-use building by the lake.
Yeah, I was just thinking that as this conversation was going, was there's going to be another city parking lot down by the mixed-use building so that overflow parking could go there. I think we just have, if I remember right, correct me if I'm wrong, but once these units are occupied, there's a homeowners association, And then they regulate a lot of these kind of issues, like if people are parking in wrong places or not,
No, because, I mean, I guess if somebody parked,
in somebody else's drive or something.
well, then it would just be the homeowner would then call and say, hey, there's some random car in my driveway, just like you do now if somebody,
But I was thinking there would be a venue for him to address if he was having issues, to let all the homeowners at once know, don't park in this parking lot or you're going to get towed, or.
yeah, it would be a way to communicate with everyone who moved into the neighborhood for sure. But the homeowners association's main focus is snow removal, landscaping, mowing the grass,
So kind of the maintenance.
the maintenance that a lot of homeowners don't want to have to deal with.
Okay.
Is the private lot signaged as a private lot right now? Okay.
Anything else? Would someone like to make a motion?
If there are no further questions or comments, Mr. President, I would move to approve.
So moved, seconded?
Second.
Jim, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone in opposition? I learned that hard way once. That carries. Justin, any other matters?
Yes, I have a matter.
Well, I didn't know,
I know. It's a surprise.
because he looked right at you, so you had this plan.
Yes, we had it
Okay.
planned already. Yeah, we discussed it. I had a community group come to me, and last year, they advertised a fundraiser that they were having by putting signs in people's yards, you know, like members of this group, and they put signs in, and they're approximately the size of like our political signs, you know, a small sign like that. And they were ticketed as a code violation. And in investigating the sign ordinance with the plan department, that is a code violation. And so this year, the same group came down and had a very nice discussion at the Plan Commission, and they got out the ordinance and showed them where you are not allowed to do that even on your own property, according to the sign ordinance that we had passed earlier. And in addition, there are educational institutions around town that are violating that ordinance by putting signs along their fences to advertise a family night or a fundraiser or an activity at their place. And we've not necessarily been ticketing them, but it is occurring. And so I brought up the idea that maybe we needed to look at that ordinance again. And I know some of you here are shuddering because it was a long process. And at the time I was on city council, but I was not on plan commission. However, you probably remember that I attended several of your meetings during that time to listen so I would understand the issues. And I don't know that our intent was to keep charitable organizations or educational organizations from being able to advertise an event just like perhaps 30 days prior to the event on their own property. I know we were trying to avoid public property and corners and things like that. And so I discussed it with the mayor and some members of the council and the plan department. And Jeremy's suggestion was that perhaps this would be a good project to give our summer intern to look into this situation and how, if any amendment to our or change to our ordinance was proposed, how we might go about that, how we could be really clear on definition, how we could get something that was enforceable, you know, all of those kinds of things. And so I'm just introducing the topic tonight to give you all a month or, you know, to think about it, whether or not that would be something that you'd be willing to ask the plan department to look into what our options might be in this area, because I think it was not our intent to have what is happening. And for many of these groups, that is their primary way of advertising, and it's an inexpensive way of advertising. And right now, if you go right outside the city limits, like cross into Winona Lake, you'll see the same event advertised in the members' yards. but in Warsaw, it's illegal to do that. So since the press isn't here, I can speak real freely about this, and I don't know that that was our intent, and so I would just like to ask you all to consider whether you would be willing to look at it again. And I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Justin, or?
Well, Justin, you might want to make a comment too, is that, do you have plans for the intern that this would fit into, or I assume there's a schedule of events for him?
Yeah, Jeremy would kind of direct what ordinances the intern looked at, so if that was one that he talked about, that would be what he would direct the intern to do. I just wanted to clarify, nonprofits and community groups, churches can place temporary signs on their own property.
On their own property being their house?
Where the business or group is located.
Okay.
Now, if, say, you had a house that was separate from that facility where the event was going to take place, or separate from the group, or just, a member of that group, then you would be restricted because that's private property. What a lot of times happens is people will put those signs in the right-of-way, which can become a safety hazard. No signs are permitted to go in the right-of-way. Regardless of what changes happen in the ordinance, that's just a safety issue, but were you guys to look at it, it would be specifically for like residential districts, potentially putting up signs. Now, you can put up a political sign in a residential district, that's more freedom of speech, and there's a window within which you can do that. A lot of these signs, though, were going along the right-of-way, and they would remain after the event happened, so those were kind of some of the issues we had with the signs.
So are these charity bazaar signs that are up all over the place now, are they in violation of the ordinance?
If they're away from the premises,
They're all over the city.
yeah, those would be in violation currently, yeah.
Okay, but there's no tickets on those.
Dana, typically, he's got a lot of things on it, to regulate.
So to her point, there seems to be some selectiveness.
No,
No.
I don't even know that that necessarily was the issue, but, I mean, these people didn't feel targeted. It was just that he happened to be driving by, saw it, stopped and put a sticker on their sign saying it had to be removed, that it was in violation of code or they face a fine. And it startled them because they had done it before.
Yeah, we definitely don't pick and choose. Dana may have sent a letter to them. They have 10 days to collect the signs and get them up. So it just depends on the violation and how Dana's approached that contact. Sometimes the owner of the sign is difficult to find, so he definitely doesn't allow one group to do it. And that may be an issue, if we do look at this, if you do pick certain groups, that may kind of confuse the situation too. So that's something to consider if we look at this.
For instance, I think the bus signs were community service, but they're in violation of our sign ordinance.
Stop signs
Yeah.
that are everywhere? Yeah.
Stop for the school bus, but they're in violation of our sign ordinance.
Yeah.
I was up through Hodges Addition and they're having a mattress sale at the high school to raise funds. And they all have the same type of signs in front yards all through Hodges Addition.
Right, there's this charity bazaar with the purple sign that's.
Yes,
Right.
I've seen those up and down Lake Street.
Right.
And they have them, I think people are understanding they can't put them in that apron, this city right away, but they have them actually in their own yards. And I just don't know that that was our intention.
Well, I think that's a good project for our intern. I would personally endorse it. I don't know that we need to do it as a group, but it'll come back to us anyway.
Yeah, it'll come back to us anyway, and eventually it'll have to go to city council. But, some of the things like that we have thought about is, how do you define what groups can do that and, what groups cannot? And do they have to get some kind of a little sticker to put on their sign in order to show that the sign's been approved?
You sound like a perfect candidate to serve
I know,
on the
there's a
committee.
lot of, because we don't want to make it worse, for Dana. And and I remember our intention was to just not have these signs all over on public corners and public places and cluttering things. And as I recall, a lot of our thought was towards businesses that had going out of business sales every other week or whatever. But I don't know that we you know, and even looking at the time limit, like Justin, you know, like when we put up our political signs, we know how much ahead of time we can put them up, and we know that they have to be down in certain days, right, Mr. Gross? They have to be down within so many hours after the election, and you know that you have to go and get them. And it would probably need to be some of the same thing, you know, like advertising so many days before an event, then they have to be taken down after, and that kind of thing. But I just think we inadvertently, you know, didn't mean for this to happen, and when I think I gave the impression of selective enforcement.
Not really. I
In
think
that-
it was just a secondary issue that came to me.
Well, yeah, it is kind of a secondary issue though, because some things we have allowed, like the bus signs, and we haven't said a word.
These charity bazaar signs, or like you said, the mattress signs, nobody's ticketing those.
Right.
This one did, and so there's
Yeah.
some selecting that's going on.
And so then they tried to do the right thing, and the plan department tried to accommodate them, but we couldn't find any way around it. I mean, there's no leeway in our ordinance to allow that, or to appeal, or anything, or to ask for special permission, or it's just not there. So,
It looks like we probably have a enforcement problem anyway. I mean, from the looks
Right.
of some of the garage sale signs, I know 2 different houses that have garage sales regularly with a sign on each corner a block away, and you can't get your enforcement guy out quick enough from Friday morning till Saturday evening to take care of those issues.
yeah, and you're only allowed to have, what is it, 3 garage sales a year?
I think it was 2.
2? Yeah, I mean, there's,
Plus, as far as
Plus, yeah.
where they put their signs and when they put them up.
exactly. Yeah, because they've gotten smart about it. And I don't know that that's the biggest issue that the city has to face, but just these ladies that came to me that, you know, have worked for years on this same thing, and I thought, you know, it's something that we might want to look at.
Well, when we passed, this is pretty vivid in my mind, when we passed this ordinance, you remember, we said there was, what was the Chamber of Commerce fellow, Mark something, Osborne, was that it?
Yes,
Yeah,
at the
Mark
time.
Osborne
Yes.
said he questioned there seemed to be a selectivity issue in his mind in the membership. And we said when we pass this thing, we would pass it uniformly
Exactly,
against everybody. Now, here we are. You know,
exactly.
whether it's arbitrary or not, it's becoming selective again. Some people are getting tagged and others aren't. Now, I think the code enforcement guy does a fantastic job. I can't say no good things about
Yes.
him.
Exactly.
There's no way he can do all he's got to do and stick on top of all this. So that's something that's got to be worked through too. But we're kind of back where we started in a way.
And everybody was most professional and very polite. I mean, they couldn't tell me that enough, that our city was, you know, very nice about everything, but,
Well, he's after everything he can get his hands. You just can't get it all. Like,
right.
there's just no way. I've worked with this a lot, so I'm really familiar.
I know you are, and that's why I wanted,
Legendary, huh?
Yeah, well,
Well,
Diane
you
talked to
wrote
me
it.
briefly. To be honest, I would really appreciate this group's experience. Many of us have been through this several times. The values of our community, enforcement, maybe an intern, this might be an ideal time, and man, I would trust this board's judgment if we even decide to do anything that would benefit the community. I think the time is good with what I'm looking at. I told Diane, your ears probably were burning. I told Diane this would be a very good, experienced, diverse group that could maybe wrestle through it and come up with something good, maybe.
and I wanted it to come here if possible. Yeah, I wanted it to start here rather than at the council level, because you guys have dealt with it and you
No, I
have the
agree. I think
experience.
Jeff's comments are apropos. I
mean-
think it was 8 years that we
Oh.
spent
Well, the
working on
planning
this.
commission was responsible for working with it to start with, weren't we?
Yes, you
They brought it
were,
to me later on.
exactly.
Right.
And this is where we wanted it to come back, because we need people that have experience and that can really delve into it and look at the nitty-gritty. And we may end up not doing anything, I don't know, but I think that we need to look at it because there's a
Good
concern.
exercise, Diane. It would be. And
It'd be worth looking at. I know
do.
what
I
Rick
agree.
and I and others debated a lot was what line do you draw and where?
Exactly,
And then it falls into, well, if Church A could do it, why can't Church B?
Right, and how
Because
do
they
you
might
def-
not have the right charitable
Well,
designation of tax.
Designation.
It's
Right.
just a matter of, what's realistic with the manpower we have?
Well,
You
that's
know,
true.
you know, you
That's
can't,
another good
like,
point.
just say, you can't
That's a
have
good
one
point.
guy going everywhere doing all this stuff,
Right.
and then this sort of thing's gonna happen. He picks on one, but someone else doesn't.
Well,
because they
and,
can't see it.
and again, it's which group is in violation, and I think the reason we
Well,
went
that's
the
all the
direction we
above.
did, everybody was in violation, so we
Yeah.
didn't have, whatever he saw, he could tag.
Right, and that makes total sense, I understand that. And in this case, the two people happen to live on highly traveled streets, and so they were visible. So being the good conscientious people they were, then they called every single member in their group to tell them to get the signs out of their yard, and so then it became a group of 50 people concerned
Bill,
about
did you
it.
have a comment?
Yeah, I'm just going to agree that, and you all ought to think about it. This can open a real can of worms. I've been involved in it.
Yeah.
Development in town with its own good restrictions. When I moved here, and this is over 40 years ago, the guy who built it, maybe you knew Wayne Clark, maybe you didn't. He was a retired colonel from the military, and he's the one who designed Rolling Hills. And he was smart, and he knew the rules on the back of his hands. But one thing I found out, new people coming in wanted to do it their way. People who were there, no, everything is fine, but they already had their input. So you really have to give a lot of thought, what's gonna happen in the future. You gotta make this thing pretty solid, give it a lot of thought before you do it.
Well, and that's a good point, Bill, and I think we did. And I think
Oh,
part
you
of the
did.
problem was it comes back down to resources in many, many cases where, you know, now he's got to pull out a book and say, okay, well, this one's approved and this one isn't.
Right.
That was
And
one of
that
the
could be
issues we ran
difficult,
into.
right, and I totally understand that. So, I mean, and you don't have to decide tonight, I just wanted to bring it before you so
No, I
you
think
could
it's-
think about it.
I
and
think
then-
it's a wonderful exercise and to be a good experience
Yeah.
for, I assume this person is probably going to follow the footsteps of into planning and it'd be a great exercise for him.
Well, you've got
because it-
3 people who've already agreed to serve with, with his intern to kind of give input if you want to do that.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember when his starting date might be. June 1st? Okay, there, thanks, Kim. So June 1st is when they will start, so it'd be a matter of maybe
Right.
a month or 2 after that before you guys would even have anything to look at, so just to give you an idea of timeline.
Justin and Diane, wasn't there a part in there about you paid $5 and got a feed for these kind of signs, and that allows you to do that, or am I thinking of something else?
You're permitted to have a temporary sign for an event, so you can have those temporary signs up for up to a month. So 180 days, so 6 months. You're allowed to display a temporary sign. You cannot hang a sign off of a fence, but you can put a banner up in front of the fence. You can't attach it to the fence.
Oh, so it was
itself.
for those
But it has to be,
6-month
at
signs
the-
that businesses were putting.
it has to be
up.
at the place where the event's taking place. So
Yeah,
it can't be at an individual's
Correct.
residence.
So if you were having an auction or a fish fry somewhere in town, you couldn't put your sign in somebody else's yard, with or without their permission. According to the ordinance, you would have to keep that, on your property.
Yeah, I think what I'm thinking of has more to do with these wheel signs, things that you put into like business and then they're temporary for 6 months before you get something more permanent.
Right, and I misdirected this group by saying, well, go down and see if you can get this temporary injunction, and then found out that it could only be for the building in which the
Place.
event was going to take place, but the building of this, but the organization doesn't own a building, they just meet in a building owned by somebody else, so then that didn't work either.
Jeff, did you have?
Well, I just think, again, back to what Bill said, that this board is not a rubber stamp board, very experienced, and if anybody could do it, our community values and enforcement, the whole 9 yards, this, I think, would be good timing. Maybe more work, but I just think it would be a good exercise, so. and-
All right, I think with that, we've covered it. Any other issues?
Mr. President, if there are no other issues or questions or comments, I'd move to adjourn.
So moved. Jim Gass seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone in opposition of that? We stand in adjournment. I'm not gonna let that go again. I got lambasted on that one.
One's burned.
One's burned. I thought I did that.
Still got-
You're right.